Can't even see it on my own fucking channel, bro. Why am I on? There, that's better. So let me just do that. Delete. Finally, there we go. That's better. Hey. We are getting somewhere now. Alright, boys, let's get started. We're going to react to some of the big fight videos from this week. From YouTube, we're going to react to some Cloister, some Rummy's Corner. We're going to react to these Agit Kabayel, Damien, Knyba highlights. And we'll try to zoom these in a little bit so that we don't get a copyright. We would need to talk about Subriel Matias. That's also Cloister boss. I guess I'm just clout chasing Cloister here in this stream. But we've got we got OME's video about Dalton Smith and Subriel Matias as well. But I wanted to react to this Dalton Smith Subriel Matias fight because I was very impressed by Dalton Smith's performance in that fight. I think he really did an excellent job of using his hands, using his hooks to get around Matias's guard, and using Matias's game plan of just stand and bang and intimidate against him. And I think I watched the Ring Magazine podcast with Max Kellerman where they talked about that fight. And Max Kellerman basically said that, Matias doesn't show trouble when he's in trouble. He's very stone-faced, he's very poker-faced, and it leads people to believe that he's winning when he actually might not be. And that can be a big problem for a fighter. Dalton Smith was more caught up. He looked more damaged, and, the commentators in the fight were very biased for Matias and against Smith, partially because of how beat up and damaged Smith looked, when it was really more of a case of just Matias is a guy who isn't going to show damage as much as Dalton Smith is. And so Dalton Smith really won this fight almost wire to wire. I mean, Matias is skilled and a skilled, moving fighter in terms of trading and actually exchanging directly in the pocket. But Smith proved that he has special hands. He proved that he has good enough hands to get around the guard of a championship level fighter, and it proves that ultimately if you've got good enough offensive skills, you could stand right in front of somebody. Your guard doesn't mean shit if the guy you're standing right in front of has good enough hands to just chop right through you. And Dalton Smith really put on a great offensive performance in this fight. So that's really the main thing I wanted to focus on. I think for me personally, the main thing. I mean, I'm not surprised by Agit Kabayel's performance. I was more surprised actually by Damien Knyba. I thought the stoppage was early. I thought Knyba actually gave a pretty good account of himself for being a very cherry-picked opponent. Not to say that Kabayel didn't look impressive, but Kabayel is supposed to look impressive in that setting, and he proved that he was, a fight between him and Usyk would be a good fight. He definitely proved that. Just trying to get things coordinated here so I can have chat up as well. Okay. So let's get started. What every boxer needs right now, Cloister.
Fellas, boxing's
Whoa,
in a bit
all right, let me check my volumes here. I just want to see.
of a strange point.
Real quick, just check my volumes. I know you guys are all looking at my screen right now. Hey, 116,000 channel views. Thank you all. Accidentally popped that up. Accidentally popped that up. And let's just check the volumes here.
Traditionally, one of the most
Hello. Accidentally popped that up. And let's just check the volumes here.
Traditionally one of the most
Hello, hello,
unpredictable
hello, hello,
sports.
hello.
Just
Okay, that's cool. I'm fine with that. I just need to, I can actually talk a little less louder. I feel like my mic has some decent gain today, actually. I feel like sometimes this mic, it doesn't quite pick me up as well, and sometimes I'm real crystal clear. It's a great mic, though. It's a Shure SM58. But we'll get into it. I said boxing can be one of the most unpredictable sports, and that's a big part of this Teofimo Shakur fight, the unpredictability of Teofimo as a fighter. I also apologize if we have any ads during this live stream. I am going to get an ad blocker eventually, but we'll go full stream and watch all these here boxing YouTube videos. Throw a like, throw a subscribe. Be lovely to see you guys in chat.
now, boxing is traditionally one of the most unpredictable sports. Just when you're certain something will finally happen, the opposite usually does. Upsets come out of nowhere, careers flip overnight, and narratives we swear are set in stone get blown up in a single round. So in this video, I'm going to be looking at the landscape as it stands right now. The champions, the contenders, the egos, the politics, and asking one simple question. What could happen in 2026? Now,
Yes.
my first prediction is that Tyson Fury will be a world champion again this year.
Really?
Crazy to kind of say, but I reckon
I don't.
his
Well,
first-
well, yeah. If he takes an easy comeback fight and one of the sanctioning bodies humors him, yeah, sure. If he has a good theory on against two, a good enough theory on against two, well, listen, I could easily see it happening. I mean, you could also just be saying he's going to beat AJ, which honestly, maybe he would beat AJ. He would beat AJ. He could definitely outbox AJ. I don't think it's a particularly good style matchup for AJ. It's part of why I've never really super loved the idea of that fight.
first fight back could be for a title. And for what title?
Well, of course,
Well,
it will be. This is modern boxing. I mean, belts mean nothing anymore. You can't get a big fight made without having 15 belts on the line. Everybody knows that. It's become ridiculous at this point.
Fabio Wardley's. Fury is coming back to try line up either a big fight against Joshua or Usyk for the third time. The Joshua fight, because of obvious reasons, seems to be in super doubt. Whilst the Usyk trilogy,
Yeah.
honestly, is a pretty hard sell. But if Fury
Yeah,
goes ahead and
that's
beats
what I'm
Fabio,
saying. It's kind of the problem for Fury right now. Yeah, he can be a champion eventually, again this year for sure. But I fighting Joshua, yeah, fighting Usyk, obviously not. The Usyk matchup is too much of a problem because he's obviously not going to win that fight. And like I said, I have numerous problems with the Joshua matchup. I've talked about that before. I've never been particularly intrigued by that fight as an American. Maybe if I was a British fan, it would be different. Maybe if I grew up, a Tyson Fury fan, an Anthony Joshua fan, a fan of both, it would be different. I like both fighters. I think they're both very entertaining, very good heavyweights, and they're two of the better examples of British boxing doing, something great for the sport in general. I can't really imagine the heavyweight division without those two. It wouldn't be. It certainly would not be what it is, and it would be great to see both of them fight like on paper, but stylistically, no. Like stylistically, I actually don't think it's going to be that entertaining of a fight. I think that Joshua is going to sort of come at Fury, and Fury is just going to be boxing and cycling and hitting Joshua at angles that I don't really think Joshua has an answer to a lot of the angles that Fury can hit him from at a longer distance, and that once it gets inside, especially now that both men are over 35, it has real potential to become a slow-paced clinch fest, especially with two heavyweights at this point where Tyson Fury has been out of the gym for a pretty long time. He's definitely been in better shape in his life. And Anthony Joshua, who was just in a horrible car wreck. Both of these men are not in phenomenal shape. They're not anywhere near their prime. And this fight is not the fight it would have been 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And the notion of Fury getting a third fight against Usyk is a joke to me, and is a matter of Fury having clout and having sold fights before. And there's really no other reason why he would get a third shot at Usyk. So yeah, you can say, okay, Fury's going to be a champion this year. It would be against Joshua because I think he could win that fight outboxing. It would be a slog in the second half because they're both going to be gassed. I mean, Joshua maybe can make something of it in the second half, but like Fury always looks out of shape, comes into camp, gets in shape, and then has phenomenal stamina. Fury has great that's one of the things that makes Fury a freak. It's one of the ways that he had the undefeated run that he had, having insane stamina for somebody with his build.
Claims another title, all of a sudden the promoters are going to be looking at it going, maybe we have something here. At this point, the Fury Usyk trilogy is going to be way more realistic, and an undisputed heavyweight title fight.
Yes, after Fury wins another fight, and he'd have to look very impressive, and Usyk would have to just keep having basically no activity.
Always sells, and even though none of us are going to be too hyped for it, I reckon it's a good chance to happen. My next prediction is that
I don't know if there's a better opponent out there for Usyk. The only other realistic opponent for Usyk out there right now is Deontay Wilder, and that's obviously just a gimme fight for Usyk against the Wilder who's lost his motivation and his power.
26 is the last year influencer boxing is going to be a major attraction. Now,
no, I strongly disagree with that. I don't think that's true at all. I think that the numbers that influencer boxing pulls in prove that wrong.
At the time, celebrity boxing was,
but unfortunately, sort of maybe. I think there's honestly a chance that one day you could see an influencer boxer. I don't know. I don't know how good an influencer boxer could be. I'd like to think that anybody who could, I don't know if somebody who starts, how old could you realistically start and get good? It is a really good question. But I'd like to think that somebody could start like even older than I am. I'm 29. I'd like to think that somebody could start in their 30s and win a belt. But, I think that a lot of people who grew up in the sport would be offended by that. That seems to be the sort of opinion, right? Like if you didn't grow up in the gym, if you didn't come up in boxing, you can't just start boxing now and become a world champion. So as like a regular guy, I'd like to see an influencer boxer one day gain some legitimacy. But from the perspective of like Andrew Tate outselling real fighters, that can stop. Yeah. Jake Paul outselling real fighters, please make it stop, Whether there is even a fight out there right now with the current crop of fighters that are at top level real professional boxing, real boxers, I don't know if there's a fight out there between two people you could make that is as big as Canelo Crawford that we got last year. And that could have been the last fight in the career of both those men, for all we know. Right? So I have no idea if there's a super fight or a fight that's going to sell like a super fight. It definitely wouldn't be a super fight if it involved an influencer boxer. But I don't know if there's a fight that's going to sell like a super fight in boxing outside of influencer boxing, unfortunately, right now. So no, I don't think influencer boxing is going to go away by any means. I think in 2028, you're probably going to see Ryan Garcia fighting some influencer.
Something reserved.
And unless the entire influencer ecosystem kind of dies, which there's a decent chance that's true.
For Z-tier celebrities, and everyone kind of looked at it as a bit sad. Then along came
Well, it usually is.
Sai and the Paul brothers, and suddenly it kind of became glamorous. High production shows, big arenas, real promotion, and whether you liked it or not, you had to pay attention. But now Logan's basically a full-time wrestler.
Yeah.
KSI looks like he's done with it.
No, he's not. Yeah.
And Jake Paul,
he's not motivated.
He's in kind of his own lane away from the influencer scene. So who's left?
Well, that's what I'm saying. He's actually part of the real boxing ecosystem now, so it shows that it's possible. I hate to say it, but he is. Right? I mean, especially as the head of MVP with his influence in women's boxing, he's placed himself there. And it's possible to place yourself there with enough work, enough time put into it, and enough money. So how can you say it's over with influencer boxing when, like, if KSI went all out into boxing, who knows? But he has a bunch of other ventures, a bunch of other things that he's doing with his time, and he isn't that motivated, and he doesn't love the sport that much, right? So, I mean, I don't know that much about KSI. I'm just saying KSI is a general person, right? I don't even know that much about him.
Not that many people. You've got the likes of Andrew Tate, who tried his luck to no success, a few retired MMA fighters, and that's about it. The influencer cards are now filled with people.
Does retired MMA fighters really count as influencer boxing, though?
Who wouldn't even make the prelims of the old influencer events. We're genuinely at the stage where
Does that just say Rod Stewart's son? That's I'm sure it's Rod Stewart's son. That's like a different person. But like if it's just Rod Stewart's son, that would be even funnier. Like the singer.
Promoters are using the sons of random celebrities just to fill out.
Wake up, Maggie. I think I got something to say to you.
The last few recognizable names from the scene disappear. It all kind of collapses. If KSI stays retired and Tate doesn't somehow make a monumental comeback,
they're both so ass. Both KSI and Andrew Tate are both trash. Like straight up.
death of the scene could happen a lot sooner than most people would think. Another big thing I think we will see in 2026 is a real changing of the guard across multiple divisions, but
quite possible.
especially heavyweight. I think most of the heavyweight stars...
Yeah, it could be a real interesting year for heavyweight. The next couple of years are going to be really interesting for heavyweight because Alexander Usyk has all the belts, and the belts have to, it would be said metaphorically scatter, but I don't really know if they're going to scatter because I think there's a decent chance you could for the first time, and I mean, anything can happen. You could get a totally new undisputed champion, yeah, but I kind of doubt it. I think it could even be a situation with how many great athletes are in the heavyweight division today, a situation of even 2 or 3 heavyweight champions, right? Reigning, for a pretty long time. I can't even speculate, right? But the belts are going to scatter, and a lot of interesting things are going to happen.
We all know and love are kind of at the end of the road. Fury versus either Usyk again or Joshua feels like an endgame fight. And currently, Usyk is talking about wanting to fight a completely washed Deontay Wilder. And I think that tells you everything.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's why.
This generation. These guys are kind of wrapping things up. Whilst in the meanwhile, you've got fighters like Moses Atalma and Agit Kabayel becoming the mandatory...
That's what I'm saying. There you go. Okay. Right? So, are we going to see a standoff between Atalma and Kabayel for how long? If people want that fight, how the promotion will be... I mean, we saw it in the 90s with Holyfield and Tyson, right? I mean, neither of these guys is going to go to prison. They both seem like, better people than that. But how long till we actually see that fight, if that's the one, if that's even the one, right? I think that more of the Kabayel hype is built upon the fact that he matches up well for Usyk, and he's coming up at a time where Usyk is fading, and people just see a timeline where Kabayel can be the guy to take Usyk 0, and that's exciting. The reasons why Atalma could take Usyk 0 are a little more obvious, just because of his blinding talent level. But I also think that's why he's not a particularly good matchup against Kabayel. I think Atalma kind of smokes Kabayel, to be honest, because I think Atalma smokes most heavyweights ever, flat out right now. Right, the best video I ever made was about Moses Atalma, and I couldn't upload it because of DAZN's copyright restrictions. And I'm really convinced that just because of Moses Atalma's pure size and pure hand speed, that at least offensively he can beat almost any heavyweight ever. And yeah, Kabayel is a very special body puncher, but there's been plenty of special body punchers in the history of the heavyweight division. He's not the first. I don't know if there's ever been anybody I've ever seen with speed like Moses Atalma's in the heavyweight division. And when you combine that with the weight behind that pure speed, it's terrifying. He can really actually KO any heavyweight in the world, and I mean that. Moses Atalma, he is special beyond what we've seen any heavyweight be in a very, very, very long time, probably since Mike Tyson. So could he be undisputed? Sure, but we haven't seen the defense. We don't know if the defense is there, and yeah, Kabayel could actually just pop Moses Atalma with a big body shot and drop him. This is boxing, but at the same time, why, if there's 4 belts, why would either of them ever fight each other? If there's 4 belts and the heavyweight division is huge, right? I don't know. You got to just hope that the undisputed title continues to carry that weight over things like clout, over things like money, over things like celebrity, right? Because we've seen it in the past become very muddied with a lot of other things that just aren't boxing. But also guys want to defend undefeated records. But that's also less true in the heavyweight division. So I don't know, you can be hopeful, but there's really no reason for boxing fans not to think that this is just going to turn into a, cluster, to be real with you.
and lining up for their opportunities, and it's only a matter of time before they get their shots and really start solidifying their positions within the division. And adding guys like Dubois trying to rebuild, and Justice Huni returning to the big time, and
I don't know how good Justice Huni actually is.
pressure on this old guard only increases.
I don't know how good Fabio Wardley is either. He's got a good offensive skill set. But
And looking outside of heavyweight, these stars aren't the only ones. The same thing applies to guys like, say, Canelo. He just doesn't have years and years left.
Canelo needs to retire.
A lot of these long-time stars are
Bro, Canelo is 69-3. Like, it's okay. You have nothing left to prove. I'd like to see, if I was Terrence Crawford, I would just take a bunch of filler fights against nobodies and get up to 50-0. To be honest with you, I really would. Just for my own ego. If I were at like 42-0, I'd be like, all right, who wants to fight? Who wants a shot at me? It's like fight every couple months.
really starting to fade out. And with Canelo specifically, I can't see him going
But is retired, and I actually kind of believe that he is going to stay retired.
on another super dominant run at 168 against younger, bigger, fresher fighters. And
Yeah,
to be
like,
clear,
bro.
that's not a knock. He doesn't need to do that.
No, he doesn't. No.
He's had his era, he's defined it, but it's clearly winding down. And with
I mean,
that,
I don't even know if it's winding down. I think the sad truth is that the second that David Benavidez became a factor in that division, Canelo's era might as well have been over. I think Canelo he doesn't want to fight Benavidez. He's not going to fight Benavidez. Because like what other he can fight some other, like, contender for a belt, I guess, now that Bud is vacated. But the ultimate test there is David Benavidez, which, like, how is David Benavidez even a super middleweight? I've always wondered that. He's a freak for that division with massive power. And I know that Canelo has negated power puncher after power puncher. But he's all wrong for us, baby. He's all wrong for us, baby. I don't like that man. That's what Canelo's camp has got to be like. Yo, you're 69-3, and you just lost. He's like, 2 of those losses are in the last 5 fights. I guess Crawford was larger, but to larger men. Benavidez is like, there are so many heavyweights out there that don't look like heavyweights, who look too small to be a heavyweight, and then you've got Benavidez, who's somehow a middleweight in a heavyweight frame, and like, that's the guy you want Canelo to fight when he's 72 fights into his career after all the damage he's taken, when he just took the damage that he took in the last fight. I don't know about that.
2026 might be.
I would absolutely hang him up if I was Canelo. If I'd achieved what he'd achieved, then I was where he was. Like, I would just hang him up. If the aura of invincibility is cracked, like, because at that point, that's what you're fighting for, right? To keep that aura of invisibility and show that you're still dangerous. And it's like, what's he gonna do? Knock out Benavidez? What was the last time he knocked out anybody? Like, he hasn't knocked somebody out in a long, long time, and he has not shown the power to knock out someone as big and strong as David Benavidez. In any part of recent history. And the only punch, like, really, I'm sorry, the only shot that he landed continuously on Terrence Crawford in that fight was that big hook to the body, like uppercut thing to the body that Canelo loves to throw so much. And it's a great punch, but he was throwing it at a moving, circling Terrence Crawford, and that was his best shot. That was the best shot that he landed over and over again in that fight. So I just don't know how much Canelo honestly has left in the tank, to be very real with you. So yeah, if I was Canelo, I would hang him up. Said like 72 fights, 69 wins, and more belts than I can even believe.
Canelo's last truly big year. I can see him reclaiming one of Crawford's scattered belts. Probably
Of course.
the WBC, maybe defending it once, just enough to wrap up the Saudi deal, which then
Yeah, he's got 2 fights left on the Saudi deal. Yeah, will he fight Jake Paul?
walk him into a Jake Paul fight in early 2027. Canelo is still one of the biggest draws in the sport.
Yeah, honestly, like, that would be a good way to go out with an easy win. Jake Paul is in that weight class, and there's too much money in it. Too many eyeballs would be on it. He just did a big Netflix fight with Terrence Crawford. Now that Cloyster says that, I am kind of seeing it. But I would definitely see Canelo fighting a couple more legitimate opponents. And if I were Canelo, I would be not even thinking about, like, I would block David Benavidez's and everyone involved with David Benavidez's phone numbers and not care, because if I'm Canelo, like, just straight up, this is boxing. Canelo, more so than anybody else in this era, was that sort of business guy who, like Floyd Mayweather, who he made the decisions. All the business decisions ran through him. You know exactly what I'm talking, right? You know, that's his ethos. If anybody were to just say the last few fights, I'm going to take some easy ones, it would be like, there's no shame in that at all from Canelo. Honestly, after losing that fight to Crawford, everybody would understand. You can, like, stomach 10 years down the line being on some, like, fighters who dodged whatever top 10 lists. If you're Canelo, I would take that over the brain damage that he's going to get from fighting Benavidez, possibly.
Crawford hasn't really dulled that shine, but it's obvious he's slowing down. And like I said earlier, I don't see...
Yeah, and also, like, if you know boxing, it's clearly that it just was Crawford's greatness also as part of what made that happen, the majority of what made that happen. What made that happen?
Eager to chase the young guns in the division. So for me, this year feels like the beginning of the end of Canelo's run at the very top, and possibly could.
I think it's already I think it's already kind of over.
Talking about stars, I don't think Tank
Speaking of over,
Davis fights anyone elite in 2026.
No, this man's checked out. This man is checked out. Tank Davis is not invested anymore.
Everyone wants Tank versus Shakur. Everyone wants Tank versus...
No, they don't. Why would you want Tank versus Shakur? Like, I guess you could market that, but, like, isn't Shakur, like, in addition to being, I think, a better boxer with not everything but better power, I really do think Shakur has better hands. And I'm not saying Tank Davis doesn't have good hands, but isn't Shakur also a lot bigger than Tank? I just don't think that's a good fight.
Any top tier talent, but I don't think we get it again. I think we see him fight another fight like Pitbull Cruz. That's a decent fight. It's fun, but Tank has already beat him.
I think Pitbull would beat Tank today. Is that even particularly controversial? I mean, he couldn't beat Roach, but neither could Tank. And Roach just has a tendency to fight to draws with the style that he has. Tank just doesn't seem to care anymore. Right? He wanted that Jake Paul fight so he could make money and retire. He could get a big paycheck and, retire. He doesn't want to fight anymore. I'm telling you, he doesn't want to fight anymore.
With one hand. And we're probably going to see something like this again. He'll remain super popular this year. He'll make a ton of money. But I don't think we're going to see him in any real legacy-defining...
Is he that motivated? Didn't he only fight once last year? What's the guarantee that we're going to see him in a bunch of legacy-defining fights this year? Is that what he said? Sorry.
I've seen plenty of power banks over my 15 years of reviewing tech, but
I have
this
to go
Ridge
back.
one
Did he actually
quickly
say
became a favorite.
legacy-defining fights? Because what legacy-defining fight would there be?
This year, he'll make a ton of money. But I don't think we're going to see him in any real legacy-defining fight.
Oh, okay. So he doesn't think. I'm sorry, guys. He doesn't think. No, I agree. We're not going to see him in any legacy-defining fights. He doesn't want any kind of smoke. He has not wanted any kind of smoke in the past. He will continue to not want any kind of smoke in the future. This man is the goal of Tank Davis's career was what the goal of many fighters that came up in the money era, what their goal was: clout, retiring undefeated. And that remains Tank Davis's goal. And he is not at a point where there's any realistic way to a number of wins that will have him in the company of, I think, the fighters that he wanted to be in the company of. And it was never realistic anyway, going, anything over 35, 40-0 if you're Tank Davis, just because of the style of fighter that he is, the forward-moving fighter that he is. Even with as much power as he has, it's real hard. To actually knock people out, be a forward-moving fighter, and stay undefeated, just inherently, in a world full of counterpunchers, it's a doomed proposition, and you're going to have very selective matchmaking, and if you want to stay undefeated fighting that style. That was always the gambit for Tank Davis, and at this point, he's taken too much damage. He's been through honestly far too much outside of the ring. And honestly, he's just a questionable individual. In my opinion, his actions speak much louder than his words, than anything that he's done inside the ring, either his outside of the ring actions. He's always going to be somebody defined by them, by what he's done outside the ring. So
now, controversially, someone I do think has a mega year in 2026 is Devin Haney.
that's because Devin Haney's good and honestly kind of disrespected in a way. In a way, he's boring, but yes, he's very good, and he's a winner. He does what he has to do to win, whether you like that or not.
Call me crazy, but if Haney wants it, the division is wide open. Ryan Garcia, if he does beat Barrios, is probably tied up with Conor Benn.
I don't like that fight that much. Barrios versus Garcia. Like, I'll only say this live. I wouldn't say this in a video that I would like put out. I think Barrios could have beat Manny Pacquiao if he really wanted to. You know, just step down on your punches a little more. Like he wasn't actually trying to beat Pacquiao, and Ryan Garcia just has faster hands than Mario Barrios. I don't like the matchup at all for Barrios, and I think that if Barrios gets Garcia in trouble, he's not going to have the heat to actually finish him. And I think Garcia can just completely catch Barrios off the back foot, off Garcia's back foot. I think that Garcia is way too good of a back foot fighter. He has way too good of a left hook. I don't think that Barrios has a punch anywhere near as good as Garcia's left hook. And I think that Rolly Romero, who gave Garcia all sorts of trouble, is a much different kind of, forward-moving direct fighter. So I don't really like the matchup. I just don't. I think that Garcia is going to win that fight actually pretty easily, and I think that's why the fight was made. I think that Garcia needs more challenges and needs to prove more to people, and I think that he wanted a relatively easy fight against Barrios. And the only real hope for that fight being entertaining is if Garcia actually is just looking at it as an easy matchup and is kind of, not training at 100% and thinking that he's just going to blow right through Garcia. I think maybe then you get a good fight, but after that performance against Pacquiao, I just don't really have any faith in Barrios to finish what he starts, to be real with you.
And that might put him out of action for 2026. So who does that leave? Haney could unify against guys like Crocker or Romero, or even take a massive money fight against somebody like Pacquiao. And honestly, I can't see him lose.
Well, like Haney versus Crocker, is that really that good of a fight? I feel like Haney, if you want to see Haney outbox yet another fighter and make another guy who people said was a good offensive fighter look bad and damage him, there you go. Because a bunch of people are going to be saying that Lewis Crocker, a bunch of British fans are going to be saying that Lewis Crocker could damage Devin Haney, and then Devin Haney is just going to drop Lewis Crocker with a body shot, and everyone will be going, oh, Devin Haney's boring, and because Devin Haney will then cruise to a win after dropping him with a body shot because he doesn't risk it after he drops people, just like what happened against Brian Norman. He didn't drop Norman with a body shot, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Devin Haney actually does have an offensive skill set, and people forget that because he's quote-unquote boring. Because once he uses the offensive skill set, he's ahead in the fight, so then he can just cruise because he's also more skilled than the guy that he's fighting against. It's funny. It's funny. It's like he's right. The division is wide open for Devin Haney. In other words, Devin Haney is the only actual... I don't like calling Devin Haney great. But that's kind of the point. People didn't like calling Floyd Mayweather great either. But a lot of people don't like calling Shakur Stevenson great. Devin Haney is the only fighter in the division in my mind that might be great. Ryan Garcia has great hands. Whether or not he's a great fighter, that's going to depend on what he does in the future.
Any of those fights. If Haney somehow unifies against Crocker and Romero and puts himself one belt away from undisputed, that's a hell of a run. And
yeah, Haney versus Romero isn't a terrible fight. Did that fight already happen? Hold on. I'm pretty sure. Did Devin Haney already fight Rolly Romero? I think maybe not. Devin Haney v. I've said it did happen and then it didn't happen, so I clearly don't know. No, it has not happened. There has not been a Devin Haney versus Rolly Romero fight. That makes sense. Rolly Romero has definitely not been a contender for as long as Devin Haney. Anyway, continuing.
It's honestly achievable. If Haney really wants it, the division is his. And another fighter I see doing really well in 2026 is Inoue. He's
Yeah,
already tightened up
he had a
on the
great year
mistakes
last year.
he's made,
Um,
and I reckon in 2026 he goes on an absolute tear. I reckon he gets a
he's going to beat Nakatani. Yeah, I mean that was proven by that Knight of the Samurai card. He's definitely going to beat Nakatani. Yeah, Inoue's not going to have any trouble until he moves up in weight, unfortunately. I think Cardenas is a much better fighter than people think he is, and that was proven by that by the fact that he dropped Inoue. And I think Inoue is just going to keep beating. He's going to have to go up in size. He might even have to go up 2 weight classes to meet any kind of trouble. And I think that his camp is being very careful. But I also suspect that Nakatani is going to be a really big payday, and that Nakatani fight has been the goal for Inoue for a while, getting to that Nakatani fight, getting that big payday, hopefully at the Tokyo Dome. And once that fight happens, I suspect that he might take a little time off and not fight until 2027.
win against Nakatani, and then potentially moves up again. And if he does, suddenly he is cemented in that number 1 pound for pound conversation.
I guess, but I kind of hate it. I kind of hate that you can go from we talked about how 122 to 126 isn't that small of a jump, but I kind of hate that you can go from 122 to 126 and be considered a pound for pound like all time, like Sam Langford, like Sam Langford was like, I'm the welterweight champion. All right, I'm fighting for the heavyweight belt next week. What's up?
I genuinely think there's a
It's 1923.
great chance Inoue finishes 2026 as the clear pound for pound king, and for 2025,
Okay. Who? Come on. Who else? Like who else really would be number 1 pound for pound right now? Like, do you really want to put Devin Haney number 1? The problem is, I mean, Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson maybe have a little bit more potential to move up in weight. And the other thing is that I think clearly, actually, Bivol is semi-active and clearly dealing with a lot of health issues. Bivol would be number 1 if he didn't lose that first fight against Beterbiev, which he didn't. So, you know, if the judges were right about that fight and judged that fight for Bivol, then I think Bivol would probably be the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world. And my personal dream fight, which I haven't talked about this, and it's also not that realistic, I don't think, but my personal dream fight, even though Crawford retired after Canelo Crawford, but even before Canelo Crawford, because even before Canelo Crawford, I said they were the 2 best fighters on the planet at the time. Terrence Crawford versus Dimitri Bivol. Now, that's not really that sellable of a fight, but I think that's the best conceivable fight on the planet you could ever make. I don't know how you would sell it, because both of those guys are kind of like just not that big outside of boxing. Unfortunately, there really wouldn't be an A side to sell to the casual sports fan, so I don't think that fight gets made. But like in terms of actually trying to settle, okay, who's the number 1 pound for pound fighter of this whole era, that would be the fight. Unfortunately, I think boxing's already moved on, and that era is kind of already over. I think the only thing you're going to see from Bivol is that mandatory that he said he was going to fight, and then maybe a third against Beterbiev. So I think Inoue is going to have to move up in weight to take that pound for pound crown. Yeah, most certainly.
Number 1 already. Although it was debatable. Whilst next year, if he goes on this sort of run, I can't see really anyone posing a real threat to the throne. And my last prediction is, I think...
Yeah, because Bivol is going to retire when we know that Inoue is going to have a much longer run at it. All right, anyway.
Dana White's Zuffa boxing isn't going to make that big of a splash at all this year.
No, because he's not that serious about it.
Honestly, over 20.
He wanted a piece of that big Canelo Crawford pie, but that was about it. I don't really think he's that serious about boxing. I think Sean Zattel hit the nail on the head. I think it. Yeah, I
would
just
be
yeah.
surprised if they bring in any names that the casual will actually want to watch. Without real stars or recognizable fighters, after a few shows, it will somewhat fade off into irrelevance. For the next couple of years, I think the success of their promotion will rely on building up their own stars and eventually somehow capturing free agency talent. Something which will be interesting to watch, but...
How much free agency talent is there actually going to be in boxing, though, bro?
In this year, I can't see
I mean, I know there's a lot of fight. I know there's a lot of, like, guys, but, like, come on. Like, just dudes out there. How many actually great Olympic level guys who sparred at top gyms and who've grown up around, the real killers, the real guys who are going to come and be champions in the future? How many of those guys are just walking around in the street and aren't signed with an actual promoter?
I think the proof of that has to be for their big opening show in a few weeks' time. They're yet to announce any of the fights. Who's fighting? No one knows. The hype seems kinda dead before the show has even begun. But now, enough of me. I want to hear your predictions at home. What do you...
Yeah, that's because they couldn't just magically bully everyone else, every other promoter out of the space just by having more money. Right? And I think that's kind of what they expected. Okay, we have Saudi boxing. We put on this one big fight. Now that we're in the game, nobody else is going to have any space. Wrong. Did you just take away Matchroom's you just took away Matchroom's license to operate? You just take away Queensbury's license to operate? Does Top Rank just not exist anymore? There's too many hands in the pie, man. There really are. I don't know how long this ad is. This is not the video we're going to watch. Let's do what every boxer needs right now.
Point right now.
Wait, is that what we just watched? Am I crazy? No, this is not what we just watched. I bet. Yeah, let's do what every boxer needs right now. And then I think I'm honestly going to end stream because I have to go make a dinner. I might come back with a second stream today.
There's more fighters, more belts, and more opportunities than ever. So many careers just feel a bit stuck. Some guys are undefeated but invisible. Yeah. Some are famous but struggling to build any momentum.
Well, Boots needs a heel. Boots needs somebody to actually... beef with and fight with and have a... He was trying to set up that fight with Terrence Crawford, and he sort of intersected at a time where Terrence Crawford was both tied up promotionally and sort of coming to a period where he didn't want to take as many fights and not even didn't want to take as many risks, but he was just chasing chasing fame and chasing fortune, and that didn't really line up with a Boots fight at the time because he was after what eventually happened, Canelo, and bigger names, Sean Porter. Right, he didn't want to give a look to a younger guy who might beat him, even if it's a fascinating stylistic matchup. And also, it's a lot more complicated. I think Crawford didn't dodge Boots. That's not what I'm trying to say. But Boots needs somebody to actually really get into it with, and make people talk outside of boxing. Make his name known outside of boxing, the same way that Crawford had Canelo.
And some legends are still active, but the clock is screaming at them. So today, I want to answer one simple question.
Yeah, Bivol are also waiting Better Biev out. That's also happening. Like Bivol's health issues. The longer Bivol goes on with health issues, he's the younger fighter. So if Better Biev is the older fighter, he's having to wait and wait and wait.
What Twitter says they need.
And he's getting older and older and older, and there's more and more chance that his power goes away, and that the tools that allowed him to quote-unquote beat Bivol in the first fight are no longer present.
What they truly need. Now first, I want to start with one of the more...
Jake Paul needs more shitty MMA fighters to retire. He needs Clay Guida to finally hang him up in MMA and fight him in the boxing ring, damn it.
Polarizing people in the sport. Ryan Garcia. Look... Love him or hate him, you can't deny his popularity. He has the speed, the left hook.
If Ryan Garcia wants to, he can. Like, if Ryan Garcia wants it, man, it is there for him. If he actually wants to train, the problem is, I just think that when Ryan Garcia gets the money and the comfort, and I think you know what I mean by this, when Ryan Garcia gets the money and the comfort, the motivation suddenly disappears, right? So Ryan Garcia... But, he also isn't... I honestly don't think he's a phenomenal defensive fighter. I think he's good. He's got good slipping. He's got good head movement. He's got as good of slipping and head movement as any naturally fast and twitchy athlete like him will have. But his hands are really what makes him special. His left hand is especially what makes him special. But I think that he actually needs to be motivated to train, and that when he gets a big fight and he gets a big win and he gets some clout, he gets some comfort, he gets some hoes around him, he doesn't fucking try as hard as the other guys in the division. He forgets that this is actually still, it's boxing, it's professional boxing, it's 24/7. There's always somebody coming for your belt if you have the belt. I think Ryan Garcia cares a lot more about the money than, belts are meaningless, but about the money than being a champion. right? He cares a lot more about the money than being a champion. And that is clearly something that even though he beat Devin Haney, that Devin Haney has on Ryan Garcia and will continue to have on Ryan Garcia. So until Ryan Garcia takes being a world champion fucking seriously and realizes that boxing is a sport and isn't just prize fighting and isn't just about money, then, you know, he's going to keep getting in trouble when he's on the biggest stage against guys who are actually training to come for his head and take what's his. So it's pretty simple, actually.
And has a following that would make most A-list celebrities jealous. But here's the truth.
Good for you. Work harder.
Ryan Garcia needs to be taken seriously again. For the last 2 years, his career has been
That's what I'm
a circus.
saying, bro. Like, of course it's been a circus. He wants it to be. There's nothing wrong with it being a circus. As long as the money is coming in, it's fine if it's a circus. Like, okay, you want to talk about influencer boxing being dead? What about Ryan Garcia? I mean, I know that I'm hating. I know that Ryan Garcia is a real boxer and was a boxer first. But you get what I mean, right? It's like influencer boxing. He's like a boxing influencer. Ryan Garcia. Influencer boxing. Okay, Ryan Garcia is a boxing influencer.
It's been suspensions, social media meltdowns, and weight disputes. Every single result has come with a major asterisk.
He's also actually crazy.
When he beat Devin Haney, that should have been his crowning moment. His I told you so moment. Instead,
Yet Devin Haney is undefeated still somehow.
it turned into a complete mess.
Well, he was on steroids.
Then we even had
Don't
hand
do
injury
steroids.
rumors post a Romero loss. Nothing came without excuses or problems. The true hype and respect he had as a talent is basically fading. The public seem to be growing tired of the Garcia who just doesn't seem to have his head in the game.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm
Everyone
saying.
wants the Ryan Garcia
That's exactly what I just said.
of old back. The fighter who is truly exciting and the fighter that we all thought could go on to be something great.
Yeah,
It's
and that's the other unfortunate thing about Ryan Garcia is that once he actually, like, he's already got the money. He's already made so much money that how many more fights are we even ever realistically going to see out of Ryan Garcia? How many more times is Ryan Garcia even realistically going to fight in his career now after the paychecks that he's made? Because in order to really redeem himself, I think to a lot of fans, he'd have to rack up, you know, a few more wins now, right? And look impressive in a few more fights. And I get that it's championship level boxing. It's very hard, right? But he's going to have to, you know, make up for that Rolly Romero loss and his other career setbacks by winning multiple fights and putting on multiple solid performances. When he's already made the money that he has, I just don't see Ryan Garcia being capable of that. Having fast hands can get you a long way. It can't get you that far in this game, in the welterweight division. I'm sorry, like, it's too good of a division too often. People hate on it and people rip on it, but part of the reason why people hate on it and rip on it is because Ryan Garcia is a champion in that division and he keeps getting title shots when there are so many other people out there surely who must be deserving of one.
rumored that he's going to be fighting Mario Barris in February, and that's
I've already talked about this fight on this stream.
exactly what is needed. Barrios holds the WBC world title. If Ryan goes out there, makes weight, stays off Twitter for the month, and wins that belt cleanly, his brand is back. If he doesn't, he truly risks becoming a permanent sideshow act of boxing.
Yep.
This is where I talk about what I liked in my first box.
Yeah,
If I
100%.
hadn't already been
He's
using
absolutely
them
going to
since
become
the
a sideshow.
beginning of the year.
He'll become an influencer boxer. I mean, he already is, like we talked about. He already basically is an influencer boxer. But he's going to basically permanently turn into an influencer boxer.
Alright, fellas.
Oh, come on. Are you serious? It restarted the whole video? That's crazy. I think he's going to talk about Boots next.
Who has everything but legitimacy. Boots Ennis is the man who has...
But yes, he will effectively just become an influencer boxer at some point, and I think he'll be destined with a date for Jake Paul, Ryan Garcia, if he's lucky, if he continues to lose. He needs to actually be in good form, and that's sort of the problem here. I think, like, Mario Barrios, he'll probably beat Mario Barrios. Probably. But, like, losing might actually end up being the best thing for Ryan Garcia, because if he's not going to have that much longer of a career, and if the main focus is money and has always been money, then wouldn't be being an influencer boxer and taking those big, Netflix shows, Netflix payday, and how clout boosting they are for, people like Anthony Joshua. He can see that and get a big Netflix show like that against a guy like Jake Paul. I don't know why that wouldn't actually be the aim for Ryan Garcia, and I don't know if winning even fulfills that aim. I mean, winning helps, right? Winning stops people from hating on you. So I guess that's good from Ryan Garcia's perspective.
But no platform. Every hardcore boxing fan knows that Boots is probably the most talented super welterweight on the planet.
He is very good.
Hitting, power punching, defensive wizard. He's done the work. He
does remind me of Bud Crawford. He has a very very, very weak resume at this point, although it's beginning to become a bit like Bud, in the sense that, it becomes harder to tell the quality of his division, because it really could just be a matter of, he's there cutting off everybody that comes up.
In the gym, he's collected belts, but if you walk down the street and ask a casual sports fan who Jaron Ennis is, they'll give you a blank stare. Boots is in need of a true rivalry. For years, he was the boogeyman that everyone avoided, and while that's a compliment to his skill, it's a curse for his bank account and his overall career. He's wasted too much time waiting for a fight like Terence Crawford to materialize. And what he needs right now, rather than just another defense, is that Virgil Ortiz Jr. fight.
And like, it is kind of crazy to me even that is like made as big of a deal as it is, and that it's like this is a big fight. It's a big fight for Boots. Like, it's a big fight for Boots relative to everybody else he's fought in terms of, scope and size. It's a unification, which is cool. It's a step for Boots up to the level that, we hope he's at one day of undisputed title fights and multi-division glory. But Virgil Ortiz is more the kind of fighter that he should be fighting, and I certainly hope, like I said in the video that I made on after this happened, after they faced off in the ring, that Virgil Ortiz is good. He's a really good fighter, and he's going to give Boots Ennis some problems.
He needs to be in the ring with someone who is just as dangerous as he is. He needs a fight where, for the first time in his career, we think he's actually going to get tested. He needs a night where he has to dig deep and show what he's truly made of. And that's how stars are born. You don't become a legend by being perfect, you become a legend by being tested. Now on to Devin Haney. He's in a similar boat to Boots. He ended 2025 a world champ, but where it differs from Boots is both need a big fight, but Haney took the hard challenge against Norman, and he showed he still has it. For Haney, he needs a fight next that truly puts him back in the public eye. Boxing, at the end of the day, is entertainment. Right now, Haney is like a great actor who only performs Shakespeare.
Yeah, I'm kind of putting it together now that I think a second Ryan Garcia fight really wouldn't be a bad idea for both of them. And I think that it would be one that Devin Haney could definitely win this time, given what I've said earlier about Ryan Garcia.
Everyone somewhat respects him, but no one really cares. If you think back to the build-up with Ryan Garcia, that was the most talked about Haney has ever been. And
100%.
why? Because there was a true story there. There was tension, there was a clash of personalities. He needs to seek out guys who can bring that back out of him.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I don't necessarily know, going back to Boots for a minute, I don't necessarily know that Boots has that kind of a clash with Virgil Ortiz. It's just like, oh, he's fighting somebody at the level that he, that we want him to fight. It doesn't necessarily mean that much from the perspective of his broader career, his broader achievements as a fighter. Boots, he need to actually put on an impressive performance against Virgil Ortiz, I think, to really prove the point that I think he wants to prove his greatness, essentially.
The Rolly Romeros, the Teofimo Lopez's, the guys who are a perfect dance partner to build a truly mega event, or even a Ryan rematch. He needs.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Just show.
It's just that Ryan would have to beat Mario Barrios and do it soundly, which that definitely remains to be seen.
Some emotion. When Haney fights with a true chip on his shoulder, he's different. and he needs to give the audience a reason to root for him or against him. And right now, he just doesn't need another fight that makes most of us sigh with disappointment. Now, I want to talk about Canelo, and we have to be honest.
Like I said, Canelo needs to hang him up at this point. He's unless he's just gonna take easy fights and ride off into the sunset, which, to be honest, there's no shame in it. But yeah.
Canelo is at a strange point in his career. For the first time in a decade, he's walking into 2026 without a single world title around his waist. That loss to Terence Crawford last September didn't just take his belts, it took a bit of his aura with it. It was the first time we saw his body genuinely betray him. He looked frustrated with speed, unable to close the gap, and couldn't do enough to get it over the line.
It's the first time he got like really properly outboxed since Mayweather. It's the first time. There's been this narrative for a long time that he learned from the Mayweather fight and he improved from the Mayweather fight and kind of became this perfect boxer, and that, okay, Bivol was able to beat him. Bivol was this Russian cyborg who just pinned him against the ropes and just bodied him the entire fight. This was actually Canelo getting soundly outboxed. And I think that definitely is something that shows his age. But I don't know. I think it did take his aura with it, and that I think Crawford kind of beat him in a pound for pound way. From a pound for pound perspective, he outskilled him. He outboxed him. The extra weight that I said was going to make all the difference, it didn't end up making very much of a difference at all. And I guess you could say, okay, yeah, that's because Canelo that is old. That's because he's slow. He's got all these miles on him. We'll never know for sure, will we? We'll never know for sure. But Crawford just took it to Canelo, and he definitely did take some of Canelo's aura with that performance.
Canelo needs right now is clarity. After having surgery on his elbow, he's back in the gym, but he's already confirmed that he's skipping his legendary Cinco de Mayo date, instead targeting September 2026 for his return.
Well, it says target Terence Crawford rematch, and now Terence Crawford is retired. And I mean, I've hypothesized that Terence Crawford isn't really going to retire. That Terence Crawford just wants, Terence Crawford has been shortchanged his entire career. He's been hard done by promoters. I think Terence Crawford just wants to make sure that he gets the paycheck that he deserves for his next fight. And I think what he wants is A-side money after being the guy that beat Canelo. And that promotionally, given Canelo's clout and track record, that's a hard sell.
And that gives him a bit of time to ponder about what comes next.
Uh-huh.
At this stage, Canelo doesn't need to prove he's great. The history books already say he is. What he needs to decide now is how he wants the credits to roll on his career.
Yeah, like I said, no problem going out strong and taking some easy fights. I have no problem with him dodging Benavidez, not fighting Berlanga, not fighting any of these huge killers in the super middleweight division. I have no problem with him taking some cupcakes and knocking Jake Paul unconscious to end his career. To be perfectly honest with you, I think that would be a phenomenal way to go out on top. And I would want to get to 70 wins if I was Canelo, definitely, and not have to take another L. And if the belts are going to scatter at 168, then that's a perfect opportunity for Canelo to just take one belt. And I guess at this point it would be old school. Just sit on your one belt and just cherry pick. I guess that is old school at this point in boxing in this new era of Turki al-Sheikh and making the big fights, honestly, arguably too consistently. I'll talk about that in my Teofimo versus Shakur preview.
Have 2 fights left on his massive deal with the Saudis. He can use those days to take safe legacy fights against guys like Chris Eubank Jr., or he can have one last run at 168. Yet if he chooses that option...
Canelo versus Eubank at this point would honestly be kind of lame. I hate to say it, it would be kind of lame. Because, like, Eubank, you want to talk about somebody with questionable motivations in the sport. Like, I talk about Tank Davis. That's a different situation. Eubank is, like, kind of woke with it, to be honest with you. He's like, everybody around me is just in this to make money. Nobody actually cares about me. I'm, endangering myself and my, physical health for all these, charlatans around me who are just making money off of my talent. Screw all of you. And I'm like, that's, honestly, like, good for Chris Eubank in a way. But, like, for Canelo, that sounds like a good opponent to me. I mean, after that, the way that Chris Eubank looked in that Conor Benn fight, I think for a while, Chris Eubank has questioned boxing as a sport and questioned the motivations of the people around him, and questioned his own motivation to fight. And I think that if you're somebody like Canelo who wants to win against a credible name in your weight class, it's a good fight. But it also could be a great fight from the perspective that that Eubank has never won a world title. I don't think, other than the IBO belt, which isn't a regularly sanctioned, recognized world title. So if it's Chris Eubank's first shot, Chris Eubank Jr.'s first shot at a world title, then it could be a really, really great fight with some real marketability, because of course Canelo has won dozens and dozens of belts, and if Eubank has never been a recognized world champion, then that's a great thing to market. It does not look like he ever has. No. He lost the WBA super middleweight. I'm talking about Chris Eubank Jr. right now. He lost a WBA super middleweight title fight. Let's see, is there a photo of Chris Eubank? There we go. He lost a WBA super middleweight title fight to George Groves in 2028. That was for the WBA title. He won the IBO title, which again, not recognized. He was an interim WBA champion, beating Matt Kobarov at the Barclays Center in 2019. So he won the interim WBA champion, but that is not a full world championship. He beat James DeGale for the IBO super middleweight title, but again, IBO not sanctioned. He lost to Liam Smith in a non-title fight, and then he won the IBO middleweight title in 2024. So, no. Chris Eubank has never won a widely recognized one of the major 4 world titles, and a fight against Canelo would most certainly be a chance for that for Chris Eubank. So that would definitely be a way they could market that fight.
Junior, or he can have one last run at 168. Yet if he chooses that option, it certainly won't be easy, with guys like Shiraz and Billy in his
Yeah,
way.
I don't want Hamza Sheeran. Like, both those fights are a no-go for me if I'm Canelo, man.
Regardless, what is essential right now for him is clarity. Next,
Yeah.
I want to talk about Tank Davis, and simply, Tank needs urgency.
Tank needs to hang him up. Tank's heart isn't in it. I mean, I wish that Tank Davis had it in him to finish the job, to continue at a world championship level, fighting at a pace that he needs to, and actually beating the fighters that he needs to beat. But he's never shown an urgentness to fight the guys that he needs to beat, to fight the best of the best. He's always wanted to just honestly script his career and go undefeated. Like I said earlier in the video, this man's main objective has always been to go undefeated and to make as much money as possible. And now that dream of being, 50-0 like Floyd is far, far flown away, and he's taken some really significant damage in his career at this point, Tank Davis, and he's been through so much outside of the ring. I don't think he wants to. I just sense a fighter that doesn't want to go anymore. He just doesn't want to fight anymore.
Lamont Roach, a fight where he seemed to be stuck in second gear the whole time.
Yeah,
He's
I wonder
had
why.
cancelled dates with Jake Paul since, and now everyone's questioning if we're ever going to see him back in the ring. If he chooses,
We'll see him back in the ring for a fight against an influencer that will pay him a bunch of money. That's what we'll see him back in the ring for.
not to retire, which seems the more likely, he needs to fight more than once a year. He needs to go on an absolute tear, whether it's Shakur Stevenson.
What precedent is there for that happening? What proof have we seen? Is there any evidence that is ever going to happen from Tank Davis? Hell no. No, that's not going to happen.
Or moving up to 140 to take on big names there, or simply taking on the elite of his own division. He needs to act like the clock is ticking, because it is. He's 31, and although he's a massive name, I think the fans have been starved of the opportunities to see him.
And he needs to stop acting the way that he does outside of the ring also, and stop getting put in jail and beating women. Can I be real?
In true mega fights.
That's really the main thing Tank Davis needs to do.
We don't need to see him in more tune-ups. We need to see Tank try and take over, as long as he can stay out of trouble. Artur Beterbiev, he's a fighter whose career is quietly at a crossroads. We seemingly have been watching the Beterbiev-Bivol saga for what seems like years now, and as it stands, the scoreboard is tied at 1-1.
And it shouldn't be. Bivol won the first fight, but continue.
2 epic decisions, but while they should be training for the trilogy, the momentum is completely stalled.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for him to say kind of that Bivol is waiting out Better Biev and allowing Better Biev to get older, because that's absolutely what's happening. I'm kind of surprised. I mean, I don't know why Better Biev isn't fighting. I would kind of be trying to keep myself in ring shape and in form. It's kind of weird that Bivol is the one who's been saying, he's dealing with the injury issues, but he's the one coming back to fight first.
Bivol is coming off major
Oh, yeah, here it is right here.
back surgery and has seemingly pivoted to taking on a mandatory in March or April. What Beterbiev needs right now more than anything is just to fight. He's turning 41 this January, and in boxing, 41 isn't just old. He's now in the danger zone. Every month he spends sitting on the couch waiting for Bivol to heal is a month where he slowly degrades.
Yeah, exactly.
Bivol's team is smart. They know that every delay
They're doing it
benefits the
intentionally,
younger
yeah.
man.
I mean, I don't know how intentionally. I'm not trying to doubt Bivol's, health. He obviously has health issues, but it's still a beneficial situation for Bivol, and ultimately it's made all the more strange by the fact that Beterbiev isn't fighting. I mean, maybe that's a calculated decision, but if I would think he would be fighting and at least making the most concentrated effort possible to keep as much of his power as possible.
Prove now that his power will be the last thing to go. He needs to stay active and in the public eye.
There you go.
So it gives no reason for the Bivol camp to avoid the trilogy we've all been waiting for. Finally, I want to talk about Shakur Stevenson. Shakur currently is fighting a battle against perception. The casual fan thinks he's boring. They think he's too safe.
But that's like the definition of a casual fan to me, though. No? Like, I think that's a good way to tell who's a casual and who isn't. Is Shakur Stevenson good? No, he's boring. Okay, you're probably a casual. Right? Because Shakur Stevenson, he's a back foot fighter. Yeah, he's a defensive master. But he's also one of the most brilliant combination punchers I've ever seen. And one of the best examples of the American style of boxing in the history of the American style of boxing. And it's always been so hard for me to call him boring. I've always been very entertained by his fights. Even from the perspective, I honestly, he's one of those guys where I even enjoy watching him fight when he's in a style of fight where he's just doing what he has to do, a la a boring fight, a Devin Haney kind of, defensive slick performance where I'm just going to do everything that I can to damage limit the other fighter, make life hard for the other fighter, whether the crowd is booing me, whether I have to clinch a bunch, I don't care. I even kind of like Shakur Stevenson's fights when he fights like that, to be honest with you, because I just think he's got that much talent. He's that good. He's that smart. He's that intelligent. And that's part of the problem with the Teofimo fight, is that Shakur Stevenson is too good of a trap setter, and Teofimo falls into too many traps, right? And I get that Teofimo is a really special fighter and a really special offensive talent, but I just don't see it as being as good of a matchup, I think, as people want it to be. I don't even know the fighter out there. Boots, maybe if the weight classes work. I think Shakur might be too light. I think Shakur is too light. But yeah, I'm like struggling now to even like picture somebody who really would give Shakur Stevenson a good run for his money. And it's sort of like with any fighter who's with talent that spectacular and that special, it's hard for me to call them boring at all. It's kind of like Mayweather. I never really considered Mayweather to be that boring of a fighter either. I think if you know boxing, you can't find a fighter that good to be boring.
But going against that narrative, at the end of this month, he has a massive fight coming up against Teofimo Lopez. This here will be a fork in the road for his career. What Shakur needs to do in this fight, and what his career kind of demands, is for him to put on a show. If you can dismantle
that's what people said against Zepeda too, and he just went out and did it. Like, what do you mean put on a show? Right? I mean, I think Teofimo is the one who needs to put on a show. I mean, Teofimo is always expected to put on a show. That's his job. That's what he brings to the ring. I think that Shakur Stevenson's going to put on a show almost no matter what. If he just does what he always does. Shakur Stevenson has never had a really terrible performance during his career. He's had some boring fights, but I don't know that there's ever been a performance that Shakur has come out where I'm like, okay, he would definitely lose to Teofimo Lopez on that night. Right? Teofimo Lopez has definitely had some performances, namely against George Kambosos, where if we get if the Teofimo Lopez from against George Kambosos shows up, Shakur's wiping the floor with him. Right?
Dangerous as Teofimo, and maybe even put him away.
And it's like, oh, if the Teofimo from the Lomachenko fight shows up, then what happens? Okay, that's a good question, right? But I don't know what it's actually going to take to beat Shakur Stevenson, and the things that it takes to beat Vasily Lomachenko, who is a forward-moving pressure fighter who relies on his head movement to slip punches, is extremely different from what it takes to beat Shakur Stevenson, who is a slick back-foot defensive operator, who also flings 5-piece counter combinations at you, right? He's like, honestly, fuck fighting Shakur Stevenson. I would rather fight Vasily Lomachenko than fucking Shakur Stevenson, because I can actually react to what Vasily Lomachenko is doing. Right? I can't react. If I do nothing, if I don't react, Shakur Stevenson isn't going to do anything until I do something. Shakur Stevenson's going to counter me. Shakur Stevenson's going to make me look stupid. Right?
The boring narrative dies.
Vasily Lomachenko will only make me look stupid if I try to wing a big shot at him and try to knock him out. Or if I try to punch him at all.
Forever. That's what he'll hopefully set out to achieve. His career needs it, and if he can pull it off, it will simply massively elevate him.
Go back a minute, because I feel like we missed that sentence.
If he can do in this fight, and what his career kind of demands, is for him,
to put on a show. Okay.
If you can dismantle a guy as dangerous as Teofimo, and maybe even put him away, narrative.
Yeah, he does need to knock him out. I think the boring narrative should have died forever already. Did you see the Zepeda fight? Did you see the Padley fight? Honestly, wasn't bad either. He had to figure Padley out a little bit, and it was cool that Padley was able to get as far as he was. As like, what was he, a construction worker, like a painter, like a wall painter? I don't even know what Joshua Padley, but he was like a guy with a regular job. He kept it entertaining, right? Shakur Stevenson, like, he just keeps putting on entertaining fights. People keep not giving him the credit for it, to be honest with you. People want to see him as boring. I think people are frustrated with defensive fighters, back foot fighters, fighters that do anything to win, fighters that clinch, fighters where the ethos is actually about winning. But the problem is Shakur Stevenson does everything to win. The ethos is about winning, and he continues to fight almost everybody. So I don't really know what more people want. I think people are more just frustrated at, guys winning fights and never really being in a war. And I don't really think that, despite this being a good matchup, that Teofimo can make this a war in the way that I think people want, like, Shakur to prove himself in that, like, macho way, I guess. Where, like, it's sort of like what happened with Mayweather against De La Hoya, where people wanted Mayweather to be, like, trade in the pocket and stand in. De La Hoya really made a point of, like, I'm going to stand in front of you and I'm going to punch you in the gut. I'm going to get right in your face. I'm going to make this an inside fight. People gave De La Hoya a ton of credit, and one of the judges even scored the fight for De La Hoya just because of the thought behind it. Almost, if you actually watch the fight, Mayweather won. Of course Mayweather won. He won that fight by a couple rounds, but you could understand at the time why, with the narrative that Mayweather was boring and that you have to actually make this guy fight and he's a runner and, oh, Tom and Jerry, you got to stand right in front of him. Why some judge who was just sick of watching Mayweather, fight in that way, in that victory at all costs, victory at the cost of entertainment way, that he gave that fight to De La Hoya, right? And, okay, you kind of have to worry about that here with Teofimo if Teofimo puts on a great performance, but I think it's a bad style matchup for Teofimo. I think it's a bad style matchup.
Forever. That's what he'll hopefully set out to achieve. His career needs it, and if he can pull it off, it will simply massively elevate him. But now, I want to hear what you think.
He needs something to elevate him, but I don't know that Teofimo is that big of a name, to be honest with you. And I think that the problem with the fight is that Teofimo has to win this fight to make himself a big enough name. In that way, I think I just said it. This fight is happening too soon. And I always hate to say, oh, a fight is happening too soon, because I hate to be that boxing boomer from that era where, you dodge the guy for 4 years and say that, oh, I'm just letting the fight get good, right? But no, I think both Shakur and Teofimo needed a couple more fights under their belt against the top guys in this division before this matchup was made. That's going to do it for this stream. I ended up blabbing a lot more than I wanted to, yapping a lot more than I wanted to. I've got a few more videos I want to watch, but I have to go make dinner because I am starving. So thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we're going to come back with the rest of these videos later. I may or may not watch the 2025 Boxing Awards by Evie. It is a little bit long. So I think I'll do the Agit Kabayel fight, and I think I'll do this Dalton Smith OME video. And maybe this Cloister Subriel Matias video as well, because I wanted to do Subriel Matias versus Dalton Smith. I put it in the in the thumbnail for this video and then didn't talk about it. But I will be back after I eat in an hour or so. And then we're going to be back with Skyrim later tonight as well. So peace out. Throw a like and throw a subscribe. And I'll be back very soon. Appreciate all the love.